Dun, 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 dun. Hey, how's it going everyone? We're here with, that is, Krillin Battle Clothes version. Now, surprisingly, this is probably the first Dragonballz Figuarts release to come out in Japan after the US. So the US got it August, mid-October, and he has just come out on the 25th in Japan. So a few days late for the review, so I do apologise for that. Work is crazy, so I only really have time on weekends at the moment. However, we do have him in person now, so we can pop him out of his packaging in a moment to have a closer look. So there are a lot of images floating around online already, so I'm sure you're aware of most of the kind of the downsides to this figure so far. But overall he is looking pretty good, and definitely really fun when combined with last month's Gohan release. So we will have both of those next to each other a little bit later in this video. But as Krillin does swing around here, we will see a nice selection of images on the back here showcasing what he does come with. He does have a few accessories which is really cool. Plus his armor can switch on and off, and surprisingly it is a lot easier than I expected it to be. But yeah, the box is very similar to that of Gohan, but has a nice teal colour instead. Anyway, let's just get him out and see what he does come with. Okay, so in the packaging here we can see that he does come with a lot of heads. He's got 5 additional heads, 4 additional heads and 1 Dragon Ball. That is the 1-star summoned ball. And for the heads itself, he does have a decent selection, though there is some quite close similarities between a couple of the kind of default kind of angry frowning face and then the kind of a bit more sad frown. Very similar. Most of the difference here is in the eyes, but more determination here compared to the rounder open look. And then we've got the slight cheeky teeth closed kind of powering up look, and then obviously the quite emotional tear drips coming down the side of the sweat there as he is about to get blown up by Frieza. And then we also have a very similar screaming one, just without those extra details, and the mouth is only half open. So not quite as extreme as the bottom one, so it is nice having a mix, though it would have been good to have a really big happy face in there. I mean, Krillin, but like Gohan, they're quite goofy and fun-going characters at times, so having those big laughing faces would be really nice. But yeah, going over to the hands, so he does have, 8 pairs. The flat hand, the spread out one's good for doing his solar flare, one's for Kamehameha, and just other martial arts kind of semi-gripping hands as well. For the armor, we've got the front and back piece, which will switch out here to give you that battle damage from that horn penetrating Krillin. And we also have additional the chest plate as well. I'm assuming this is similar to the Gohan one, where instead of being a tight point it just curves off to allow for better articulation. So yeah, overall he does come with quite a few fun accessories in terms of that armor plating there, and a nice wide range of heads, and that's huge. That's one thing that we'll go over a little bit towards the end of this video. But for now, let's pop him out and check out the finish. So as Krillin spins around, you will notice that he is leaning up against a stand, and that is because this figure is horrible to stand up by himself. He should have come with a stand. That's going to be probably one of my main cons with this release, but for now let's check out the finish. And yeah, the head is actually painted this time, whereas the other Krillin that we got at the start of the year had the colouring straight out of the mould, so that is kind of a big difference, but it does blend in well with his upper body here. So that could be why, to match up the colouring with the skin so it isn't quite as noticeable. That's one thing I've noticed on some other figures recently, namely the superhero Vegeta. The armor is a really nice colouring, kind of same with the blue. I think all the colours look really nice and they do kind of pop. And since this one is mostly coloured, the white plastic is kept to a minimum, which normally does kind of come off as quite plasticky on some of the previous releases that we've had. So the fact that the white is at a minimum, I think really works well on this figure, and it helps he is a smaller size as well. Yeah, the gloves, boots and legs, and the colour separation from the black and skin, overall I think it's looking really nice. He has some pretty big peaks in his elbow, but it does kind of blend into his muscles there. He definitely looks like a bit more of a chunky boy compared to the other Krillin release. A bit more shorter and stockier, and definitely bulked up from the extra heft of the same armour. Overall, I do think the proportions for that part of the series and the Namek Frieza saga, I think it's looking really good. Whereas obviously the other Krillin, I think it's more based on the Cell saga, so he is a bit more, I guess, slimmer and slightly taller looking proportion wise. But yeah, overall, I think the finish is looking really nice. I'm overall satisfied with the way he looks. Let me know in the comments below what you think about his overall styling though. Moving over to the articulation, from his head, since he does have a pretty chunky neck, it can be a little bit limited, but overall he does have the left and right motion going on, and same for going forward and back. Now if you do feel like the articulation is a little bit limited, you can pull the head up and off. As you can see, it does have the peg in there, so you can align that up in the way that you want to tilt it, and then you can also put the head on. You don't have to push it on quite as hard. It does look a bit more long neck there though, but it does allow you to get some extra range on. So depending on what you're doing, maybe you're taking a photo and you just want that extra range, and that is definitely an option. The armor itself is like all the others, it just lifts up, giving you access to the shoulder joints, and again these just have the usual butterfly joints on them, and again it feels really smooth. Everything feels really solid and moves nicely on this figure so far. We also have the usual bicep swivel. Then his elbow joint is relatively nice, though due to the design of the gloves and the sort of shorter and pretty bulky arms, the articulation is slightly limited, doesn't get as much range as some other figures. And same with going forward, due to that butterfly joint you can actually get around nicely. All you have to do is spread that arm right out and then you can come forward. So even with the base chest plate on, it doesn't hinder it too much, but we can take that chest plate off with one that has more curves on it to allow for even greater range of motion, which is great. I love having this flexibility in the design where you can replace a certain part while it may not look as tidy as before, but the use case is just to give you that extra range of motion, and it works beautifully well. So having that extra versatility is a huge bonus. Now for his upper body movement, it's limited. He gets a little bit of motion forward and back, but not much, and same for left and right due to the overall shape and design. To be honest, I don't think there would be much difference if this whole chest area was just one solid piece. So that is a little bit disappointing, but I guess he has a super tiny body, so a little bit to be expected. Moving down to his hips and legs, got the usual design there from most of the 2.0 figures, though it is a little bit limited, you can't really do the splits, but everything does feel nice. He does have the upper thigh swivel, and then his knee joint is double jointed as well. So even though he does have those kind of short chunky legs, he does have a decent range of motion, and you've got the 1-2 points where it can move. Coming down to the feet, it's on a single peg there, can move left and right, and we do have a toe tip point as well. The feet on this figure are very small, and as you saw at the beginning of the video, I had to use a stand to lean it up against. You can get him standing by himself, though it is a bit awkward, and moving around on the turntable, you just kind of keep falling over. So I do recommend, if you are going to pose them in your display, to use a stand. Moving over to the faces, so the base one on there is that slightly determined, frowning look, really slightly angry, kind of powering up, and again very nice. The monk dots on his forehead are very clean, and all the other line work is nice as well. It kind of reminds me of the Kid Krillin head in a lot of ways, probably mostly due to that sizing. The next head is the very similar, bit more sad frowning one with the rounder eyes, very similar to the last. I think I would have been happy to switch this head out for a happy smiling one instead. The next head here is the kind of slanted teeth gritting one, kind of good for powering up. We do have some extra lines above his eyebrows as well for extra detail. It's pretty simple. I haven't been blown away by the faces this time for this release. I feel like the expressions, they work, but maybe not quite what I would go for myself. So this is the first of the open mouth screaming faces, with the kind of bit more subtle. So this is kind of when he's getting picked up and he's like screaming, "No, let me go!" And that brings us to probably the best face for the release, and that is the full-on screaming when he's about to be blown up by Frieza. We've got the extra, I guess, sweat marks coming down the side of his face there. His eyes fully closed as he's screaming with the tonsils showing at the back of his mouth. So this face is really good. I feel like probably a lot of people will probably be displaying this Krillin in the display with Frieza below him, about to blow up Krillin. But since we do have this figure, hopefully it does mean we're getting a new Super Saiyan Goku at some point to kind of pair up with them all. So this release also does come with that 1-star summoned Dragon Ball, which looks just like all the rest. Super nice, clean, and I love that colouring. I'm really looking forward to getting the Pringa at the end of the year. It'll be cool to see the comparison between these balls and the ones that does come with them there. But yeah, he also has his Kamehameha hands attached on there, which also can work for holding the ball. The hands are really simple to switch on and off for this figure too. We can just pop off there. As you can see, it does have a nice sturdy looking peg. It has a bit more of that triangle shape, so a lot harder to break compared to some of the other figures in the past. So one of the coolest parts of this figure though is that we can change the armor. If you look really close, there's a slight line at the bottom, so you can kind of put your nail in there or something else flat and just slot that armor piece off. And then you can just place the new one in over top of the white area, and then you have the battle damage. The back plate is a little bit trickier to get out. It's had to get something in the side to pry up the armor. But once you do get it off, you'll see that the 4 peg holes are there. So just line up the new armor piece, slide it in under the top section, and then you can push it down. I recommend don't push it on too hard, otherwise it may be a little bit hard to get off. Okay, so on the turntable here we do have the brand new Battle Clothes Krillin with the Battle Clothes Gohan, Kid Krillin, Sun Raised on Earth Goku, and the Earth's Strongest Warrior Krillin from earlier this year for a bit of a size comparison. Now, I do feel like the Earth's Strongest Krillin pairs beautifully with Goku and the other Z Warriors, though as you'll see when the new Krillin comes around, he is pretty chunky and the head is very big. I feel like the Kid Krillin is a pretty nice match up with, say, Gohan and the other Kid Goku figures, and I feel like a pretty, yeah, I mean the head is bigger than the new Krillin, but kind of different lines. The DB ones have that scaling difference. But the new Krillin here, who's just swung around, he is very big in comparison to the other Krillin. It's almost like two completely different characters, or from very different lines. Now the new Krillin, he does pair well with Gohan, and I think he will work well with the other characters from the Namek saga. Frieza, especially if you have them not next to each other. I think he'll also work quite well with the other Ginyu Force members too. But when you do kind of line him up with the other characters from the Dragonballz S.H.Figuarts line, I feel like the scaling is starting to look a little bit weird, mainly due to that kind of giant head and kind of bulkiness. That's where I do quite like the Earth's Strongest Warrior, though now looking at these ones together, I feel like the head is maybe a little bit small on this Krillin. As kind of, I guess it's quite hard to get that right balance between them. But yeah, please do let me know in the comments below what you do think about the sizing for all these characters, especially the Battle Clothes Krillin and Gohan when they are next to each other. So that does bring us to the pros and cons for this release. Straight up with the pros, I do love the armor and the fact that we can switch off the front and back portions of it to show that battle damage from being skewered by Frieza. The colouring of the armor I think looks really nice. He does come with a lot of options for heads as well, which is great, though some of the expressions are a little bit too similar for my liking. The overall joint and aesthetic look for this figure I think is looking really nice. The somewhat matte look to his head is nice as well. It really does kind of remind me of an egg, though. They're kind of somewhat matte and shiny look, and even the skin tone as well. Now going over to the cons, those feet, to be honest, they're kind of horrible. They look nice, but they're not practical. you can't stand him up easily without a stand, and if you do get him standing, he just doesn't really look good. He definitely needs a stand, and he doesn't come with one in the box, which is a huge shame. The articulation is a little bit limited, especially in the hip area. Kind of same in the arms as well, though from his body size that is somewhat to be expected, so it isn't a huge con for me. The head's not being switchable with the Earth's Strongest Krillin, which we do have here, which actually, well, it does use the same style of connector. It is subtly different. The Earth's Strongest one has the slits at the back, which aligns with the head to slot on and off. So yeah, that basically covers it for the pros and cons. Overall, I do think it is a really nice release, and it does pair really well with Gohan, and I'm definitely glad we got this version of Krillin, especially with their armor plates. But I do feel like the figure is a slight letdown though, due to his feet and those heads. But it is really nice to have in the collection, so it is still a must pick up for me, though it is definitely one of the weaker releases this year, especially when compared to the original Krillin, which I think is probably my top pick for 2022 so far. It's going to be very hard to beat him. Perhaps he'll be dethroned when Vegeta, Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta comes out next month, or Prunga in December. Definitely looking forward to getting my hands on those, and there will be reviews of course as soon as they come out, so do hit that like and subscribe button so you can be notified when those videos do come up. But yeah, for now you can check out more photos of this release at the end of the video. There'll be some on Instagram over the next couple of days, as well as you can jump on rockchala.com for 360 images and actual individual photos of this release. But more importantly, drop a comment below in the comments about your thoughts on this release and how he stacks up with the other figures from 2022. And obviously, what else would you do to make this figure better? Different face, different sizing, but yeah, drop that comment and be fun to have a read through. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, cheers!